You're listening to Bigfoot Society, and I'm Jeremiah Byron. Tonight's account comes from two men who followed a strange tip from a woman at the Sasquatch outpost in Bailey, Colorado. Where they ended up and what they ended up seeing is incredibly intense. This is the story of Mike and Todd and the night the forest opened up, so stay with us. All right, Bigfoot Society, welcome to the show today. We've got two individuals that we'll be talking to today. We've got Mike and Todd. These two gentlemen have had some interesting encounters over the years. They've been involved with an expedition with Mr. Jim Myers from the Sasquatch Outpost. So we've got some really interesting things to talk about today. So Mike and Todd, how are you guys doing today?
Doing good, Jeremiah. Thank you for being on the show. It's an honor. I'm Mike from Wyoming. I live in Wyoming.
Yeah, doing good as well. My name's Todd, and I live in northern Colorado. Thank you as well, and been listening to your show, working my way up to get current, and enjoying each and every one.
What was it that introduced you guys to the world of the Bigfoot?
I always look back at when I was a kid. I remember getting these books from, I don't even know what it was. I think it was a Woolworth store back then or something like that. But they were these books that had like one page kind of blurbs on different things. I remember like Loch Ness Monster and the pyramids and different random things. But one of the things I remember is reading about Bigfoot. And I got a few books. My parents signed me up for a book club kind of thing where they mailed you books every month or whatever. And there were a couple. I know one was Bigfoot and one was about a Yeti. And I actually kept those until actually moved to Colorado here. And I gave them to my kids to read. And they weren't so interested in reading them because they were old books. But I remember reading them after digging them out of the box. So that's kind of my thing. When I just remember back when I was a kid.
Jeremiah, when I was a kid, I was into dinosaurs, and I followed the Loch Ness Monster on any show I could. And then one day I came across In Search of with Leonard Nimoy, and he did the Patterson-Gimlin film. And I was like, if dinosaurs exist, then Bigfoot must be a caveman. And that got me into it.
All right, so extremely interesting. I mean, similar to stories such as myself as well. Introduced to those shows and those books. But what was it, guys, that made you cross the line from watching shows and books to actually maybe going out and having an encounter? Is it something that just happened organically one day?
Well, I kind of got reintroduced to it or more interested in it with finding Bigfoot and seeing that they came to Colorado and that was a thing. And I never really considered it at that point. And living in Colorado, like I'm into hiking and camping and fishing and stuff, but I took a job in Leadville, working at the hospital up there. And that was in like 2012 through 2014. And just being into the finding Bigfoot thing. And I ended up having conversations with one of the maintenance guys up there. And I kind of had my first experience up there that made me really think like this is possible and this is a thing maybe kind of started me on that path of like wanting to go out, wanting to learn more and seeing what's all out there, that if they're not just in Washington or California, they're here too. And then finding out, I'm also from Pennsylvania originally, finding out they're from there as well. And, looking back of like, did I have anything going on that like I couldn't explain? I couldn't really think anything, but just having that possibility that could have been, something, maybe, who knows, but nothing really stuck out then. But my first real experience was in Leadville.
Mine was I was watching Finding Bigfoot 2 and Expedition Bigfoot and listening to your podcasts and then Wes Germer's podcast, and I started putting the pieces of the puzzle together that these things that happened in the past that I couldn't explain was possibly Bigfoot related, and that got me on the path. And I met Todd, and then we started hiking and doing some research in Colorado, and that led up to the Bailey incident. But I do have some stuff as when I was younger. I'm a big outdoorsman. I love to fish, hike. My friends are into hunting. So many years ago, there was a group of 5 of us, me, my brother, and then there was Bob, Perry, and Troy, and we would all go camping, fishing every weekend we could. We used to go up to Kurt Gowdy State Park, Crystal, and then we went up in the Medicine Bow, the Snowy Range area, to Lake Owen. And when we were younger, we stayed in a tent, and we would play. It's a crazy game, but we used to king of the tent. We would draw straws. Whoever had the shortest would get in the middle, put 4 guys on each end of the tent, put all the sleeping bags where things would hurt us, and we would just beat each other up, wrestle, whatever we could to get somebody to forfeit and get out of that tent. And you were king of the tent. It was kind of a crazy game. But one incident, my brother got pushed into the edge of the tent. Something grabbed his hair and held him. He screamed. He couldn't move. We were trying to pull him, and he was stuck through the nylon tent. We had longer hair back there in the 80s, and something had his hair good. My friend at the time, we didn't know he was loaded, had a gun, ran around the side with it. There was nothing out there. We couldn't find anything. And he said raccoon, which made sense. The raccoon has little hands. About an hour later, one of our fishing pots, you could hear it dragging off into the rocks and trees. You could hear it clanging the whole way. Bob went running out after it again with spotlight and his gun, and said the raccoon had taken his fish. That skillet was heavy. It was heavy cast iron back in the days. They don't make them like that anymore. And it just didn't, at that time when he said raccoon, I was like, yeah, that was the easiest thing to think it was. But it didn't make sense. How could it carry that? Those cast iron pans were heavy. And years later up there was many times where they have, I guess you'd call it a gondola, where I take my dad and a picnic table there. We could fish from where the creek goes into the lake. Many times walking, there's bushes to the right, there's the creek to the left. As I'm walking towards the lake, I felt uneasy, like I'm being watched, but I couldn't see anything. And one time it was so bad, the wind was blowing and everything, and I walked by the bushes, and it was like I ran into a brick wall. The wind stopped, all the sound was stopped. I stopped there carrying some sodas to go back to my dad and lunch. And I don't know what compelled me to do it, but I sat there and stared, and I said, I know you're there. There was nothing around. It's just like I wanted some kind of reaction. I didn't know what it was at the time, but I knew it felt like I was being watched. And then years later, we would go to Kurt Gowdy State Park, that I hope somebody comes forward on this. And between Crystal and Granite Reservoir, we used to fish down in the creek. And one of the weirdest, me and my friend Bob would throw rocks at each other, Bob had some plumber's crack going on, so I would throw little teeny rocks to try to see if I could get it into his back end, like a little hoop. Well, we started getting hit with rocks that I'd be like, Bob, stop throwing rocks. Those are bigger. And he swore he didn't do it. Later that summer, me and him and another friend of mine, Scott, were fishing. It was foggy. Went to this ledge. It has a 6-foot ledge above us. There was a little waterfall, and we could see the fish in there the night before. So we were going to get there, but we spooked them. We were going to get there early in the morning. A fog was heavy in. We're sitting there, me and Scott. Bob is just up the way. And rocks are being, like, if somebody's to the top of that, kicked off onto us. And I thought for sure, that I told Scott, Bobby's messing around with us. and some rocks were going in the water. It was pissing me off because I thought it might scare the fish. But it turned out that Scott started throwing some rocks back, and I was like, "I'll let him go. Let him have his fun." Scott picked up some bigger rocks. You couldn't hear anything get hit, but on the third time, probably a little bigger than a 50-cent rock, he threw it back, and you could hear the thud. It made contact with something solid up there, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, you hit him!" And at that moment, we heard a sound that almost was like A-E-I-O-Woo together, but it was a deep grunt, like I can't even do it, but it's like, and I looked at Scott. Scott looked at me. I panicked. First thing I was thinking is push Scott towards that wall so I could get across the other side. Mountain lion came into my mind. That's the only logical thing I could think of at that time. Scott was just quivering. We couldn't hear this. We couldn't hear it moving. It didn't make another sound. It stopped the rocks. Mark, another one of our friends to the far end, Bobby had caught a fish, and we'd heard it. And I screamed, "Bob, we're catching fish left and right over here." I could barely get the voice out of my mouth. I was so scared. Scott was sitting there trembling. And when Bob came over, he said, "Oh, you guys are catching a lot." I said, "There's something up there." And of course, he was back, and he walked up. I walked behind him. Nothing. Jeremiah, this canyon is steep. There is no way. When we were going down that, I'd have to lean to the edge. You take a step, and you're almost going 3-4 feet down on granite, the little rocks, because it's just so steep. There's no way anybody could run up that. No way anybody could be anywhere around there that we couldn't see them. And there was nothing up there. But again, I played that off as mountain lion. But there's several times we were down there, just me and Bob by ourselves fishing. And I'd be like, "Do you feel that?" And he said, "Yeah, there's some yo-yos up there watching us fishing. If you get a fish, let the drag go out. Don't let them know, because that was a good hunting spot down there for fishing." Several times like that we just felt like we were being watched is not the right word. It was so strong. It was like we were being observed. I felt like we were little ants in an ant farm that somebody on the outside was watching, and we were the ones being watched. I never seen anything. That was the only time I ever heard anything. Never smelt anything there. But yeah, and then probably a month after that, a gentleman had been fishing very close to where we were. And this was a secondhand story, but I got to talk to this guy. He left there because, well, he had him and his wife, and he had a Volkswagen Beetle back in the days. His wife started screaming. His wife and kids were up there towards the creek. He was more towards the lake. Come running around the corner, and what he described, he said, looking over the rock was Bigfoot. And back in the 80s, of course, everybody was laughing at him. And my brother told him, said, "My brother's into that. Would you talk to him?" And when I went up to talk, he was really reluctant to say anything, because everybody was laughing at him. But he took off. He left his kids and wife there and took off back to town, and then had some of his friends come back to get his wife. I was like, oh my gosh. It was about right where the spot that happened. And we blew it off as maybe hysteria, because I wanted it to be real, but it never scared us from going back to that fishing area. But my brother, with that incident with the tent, he never went camping again. It scared him too bad. So that kind of leads us up to Bailey. I was working with Todd, and we decided to do some research, I guess you would call it. We just went looking and hiking to see if we could find anything, and went to Sasquatch outpost. Ran into a lady there. I don't know if we could use her name, so I won't. But as soon as we walked in, we were asking where the good places to go around Bailey for any kind of Bigfoot footprints or evidence. And she looked at me and Todd and said she could read our auras, that we had purple auras around us. And she goes, "I'm going to give you my secret honey hole, where to go." So me and Todd went there, and I'll have Todd jump in too. We walked up in this area. It was steep, and they had cameras, which was real weird. They had cameras on the picnic, like the vestibules out there. We walk up, and I found a little footprint that looked like a little human footprint. Showed Jim up there, and he didn't think it was anything, but I was like, well, who would have their kids up? We were off the terrain, and it just seemed real rough to have kids. It was probably about 4 or 5 inches long, maybe 2 or 3 inches across, but Jim didn't think it was much. And then we found a bigger footprint we took a picture of, and we ended up finding somebody. I'll let Todd go into the piano, but we found there was somebody's underwear that was all ripped up on the bush as we were walking up. We thought that was really weird. But just a lot of weird things up there. And, and then some tree breaks. Me and Todd ran into some tree breaks, and a lot of people are like, well, if they're in the forest, how come we don't see them? And me and Todd was in a section that I was looking at, I think, a tree or a stick figure, and Todd screamed at me, and I went to turn around real quick, and I thought, oh crap, mountain lion. There was a deer not 10 feet away from Todd, a buck that just sat there and looked at us. And I was like, how did we not see that as we got so close to it? Didn't move until we were talking back and forth, and it went off about 20 feet from us, and there's a doe. I was like, how did we not see these things? They're right there in front of us because we were looking for other stuff. But I'll let Todd go on them. There was a piano we found in the forest that was strange.
Yeah, so the lady at the Sasquatch outpost directed us to go there, and she told us about this piano in the woods. Kind of showed us on the map on her phone generally where it's located. It's not an official trail, but if you follow it, there's a trail. But we went up, and we saw the little footprint. There's another one. It was more of a game trail that we kind of followed. And it was like, it was like a little kid print, like maybe like a 5-year-old size. And it was kind of in the dry, dusty part of the dirt that, it kind of stood out. And then to kind of notice looking out that there's a little bit of a hill, and you could see it was the boundary of the park that we were at, but there were cabins. It was almost like they were using that if it was, if it was a Bigfoot or even just people, like you could oversee the cabins without really being seen. Like it was in the trees a little, like after kind of thinking about where it was. And then, where the deer were, there was a lot of tree bends and what could be structures in that area. And the deer being that close, and it was like, it kind of jumped up behind me, and like, I was ready to go. It was, you knew it was something bigger, and it was close, and I didn't see it. So what the heck could it be? But it was kind of weird that we weren't trying to be quiet in any way. We were talking back and forth, and, you would think something like a deer would just kind of get out of there on its own, not let us get that close. But, and then we went then we got to the piano. The piano itself is kind of weird because it's this old wooden piano in the middle of the woods, and there's some landscaping that don't really know, like the flagstone landscaping and places to sit, but there's no plaque or anything. It's like, it's a memorial maybe, but like who put it there and what the reason for and all that, don't know. And I've seen people post like Colorado photography on Facebook where they found the piano, and I've asked the question of like, does anybody know the purpose? And nobody responds. And I've went back, and there were people there on horseback, and they thought it was weird. And again, no idea what it was for. But it's kind of weird to be out there where it's at. And then, we went past where the piano was, and that's where, there was a pair of like tighty whitey underwear hanging in a bush that were shredded. So we were saying somebody had a bad time one way or another, that they left their underwear, and that they just disappeared. It's a park. It's just hiking, day use kind of thing. It's not camping, so people shouldn't be out. That was somebody camping there or whatever to leave them. But there was a big footprint near that kind of noticed, like the moss was like kicked up like in front of it, and what looked like toes to me, what I caught. And was like, well, maybe somebody's bad time was they ran into that Bigfoot, but it was just it was just a weird thing. I went back up. Geez, that was in September. Was it 2021? And we went back up. I went back up with my family the next year. And it things actually seemed different. Going on the same trails. Went to the piano and went past it, and it was like, it's the same, but it's different to me. I don't know. Like, I didn't notice all the tree bends and stuff like that, but it's just a weird, kind of area. There's been some weird stuff that's went on. There was a incident where there is a body found up there, and it was on the news and was following what was going on. And like, they posted a story, and I can't remember the exact wording, but it was like, well, they shut the park down completely, that people couldn't go in while they did this search, but the guy was reported missing, and they found them, and it sounded like it was an animal attack related kind of thing, but there was no follow-up, and then the story just disappeared. Of like, you go to the same web page, and you can go back and find the story. I'm like, I can't even find this old story to be like, who to follow up with or anything, to maybe contact, just out of curiosity. But it was just a weird thing, and it was, it's a place that you go that you kind of want to know, like, hey, there's mountain lions and bears pretty much everywhere in the mountains in Colorado, but like, is there a problem bear or a mountain lion kind of thing? But yeah, I haven't been able to find anything more on that. And I even asked Jim Myers on about it. He's mentioned how he gets called out with the coroner and stuff if there's traffic accidents and stuff, and he said he wasn't aware of anything with that himself. So, and it's one of the areas that I would imagine he would be going if people that he works with goes there too.
So I want to clarify a few things just to make sure I have it all together in my head, because in that account there's a lot you guys threw out there. So so it's an area where you hike into it. There's a stand-up, like, old school piano. You found a large footprint with toes that was near a pair of underwear that had been ripped in some way. Is that all correct?
It sounds crazy, but that's correct.
Yeah, they were like shredded, just hanging out on a bush.
Guys, that's some missing 411 stuff right there. Like, if I've ever heard it, my goodness.
I was gonna, and I don't know why I didn't take a picture of that underwear, because I told Todd, I was like, this looks bad. It looked like it was, I don't know how to explain it, Todd. It looked like it was ripped off of someone and put on a bush. I was like, oh dear God, what is this?
Yeah.
Oh boy. What was the length of the footprint? Did you able to get a feel for that in any way?
It was big.
It was bigger than mine.
We put Todd's shoe next to it.
Yeah, I wear 11 and a half.
Oh wow.
Not like, I'm not like I have huge feet, but it was noticeably longer and wider than mine.
The width looked like it was 6 inches. It was so wide. It was crazy wide.
Gotcha. And just the one footprint then?
Just the one. It was at a soft spot right there, because the rest is kind of rocks and some brush. So if he stepped again, and we looked all over for a set of them, but there's bushes, there's a little brush that maybe 12, 13 inches tall. We tried to find another one.
This is probably the only episode I'll ever be asking these questions, hopefully. So was this a larger pair of underwear or smaller?
It was large. It wasn't no kid. It was an adult.
Well, either way, it's not a good thing. But was there anything that I guess you torn off of it, but anything that made it look like it was bloody in any way, or just normal hair?
No, I don't think we seen any blood on it. It just looked like normal hair that had been shredded, ripped.
Yeah, they just look like dirty, like weather kind of.
Yeah, that had been there a while.
Gotcha. So like has the dirt of the forest on it.
Yes, but
okay.
It almost looked like it was placed in that bush. There's no way the wind, because it was on the backside of the bush. That wind would have came from the northwest. It was opposite of that, so there's no way that the wind just pushed it over on that side of the bush. It looked like somebody placed it there.
It sounds like, well, and roughly how long does it take you to get to this area where this is in the woods?
Oh,
like from the parking lot?
Yeah.
Not too long.
Okay.
Maybe like, maybe
we actually went farther back than we thought, because we came back behind some guy's cabin. We somehow got way off track from where we were, and we came up to some guy's cabin, and I told Todd, we need to swing more to the north because we don't want to come up this guy's backyard.
Todd, had you said around like 20 minutes, something like that?
Yeah, maybe. Okay. Maybe something
20,
like
30
that.
minutes.
Like if you were gonna walk straight, like just go straight back to that. It wasn't that far. But we were checking this out here and going over here. We were following just straight back the trail. We just kind of just wandered into that.
Man, that's weird. That's one of the weirder things I've heard on this show, to be honest.
And that's where, and I told Todd, I called him the day after and said, did you see when we were up at that, I don't even mind giving the place away. Do you, Todd? Oh, no. Because a lady told us that's her favorite Bigfoot place, but
oh yeah, don't give it away.
I told Todd, I said, did you see there's a missing guy up there now? And they closed the park down because we were going to go up that weekend. And Todd checked into it a lot more. I was like, what is going on? And Todd's right. It was on the news and it just disappeared. I don't know. I hate to say cover up, but it just disappeared.
Okay. So that's right. So there was a body found in the same area or in the same park, you're saying?
Close.
Yeah.
In that same park.
Close.
It wasn't.
Okay. Yeah.
It wasn't right after. It was like, I want to say like a year and a half later.
Oh yeah. It was the next year, but I mean, it was in that place. Yeah.
Gosh. Oh man, that's very, very weird. It makes me wonder, like, what else this individual has had happen in this area, if like this is her special spot,
Oh, she's told us, me and Todd, she's seen 3 juveniles there. And this is crazy because this is going to lead into our big encounter with Jim. But she told me and Todd, said, you guys got to promise and do me a favor. And I said, what? She said, if you walk and everything goes quiet and you hear a humming or a buzzing, she said, please backtrack, go backwards, do not go forwards. And she was talking about portals up there. And I, at that time, Jeremiah, I was like, this is a bunch of monarchy. But yeah, she made it clear to me and Todd, if you hear some buzzing or humming, she said, and the forest goes quiet, she said, back up.
So this is interesting. I don't know if you guys follow the Untold Radio Network and Chris Reinhardt and all those guys, Doug's channel, but they've been getting data from all over the US where there's this hum that's being captured, this buzzing. It's 40 hertz. And I just interviewed Chris, and it can be replicated using a tuning fork. And allegedly when you play it, like it'll pretty much bring the weird stuff in. So that's really, really interesting that you just mentioned that that similar thing is heard in the same area.
Todd, no turning forks. Do not bring those to us. We have enough. We have enough weird stuff, Jeremiah.
I was thinking of it.
No, I'm not going with you if you do that.
Oh yeah, and I did, and I'll say in this one too. That's for entertainment purposes only. Be careful messing around with stuff like that.
You don't. Yeah, be careful, mess. And the gentleman that was on your show that ran into that 9-foot Bigfoot right outside of Bailey, we met him up in Estes and got to talk to him. Yeah, we got to talk to him up in Estes.
So when you were in this piano area, did you you didn't hear any of the humming, or it didn't get super quiet, nothing like that? Okay.
No, I joked around because the piano still mostly plays, and I was like, it's like you wonder if you play the right or the wrong tune,
right,
kind of thing. That does it bring something, or or like it was like, how creepy is it, like if you're out hiking and you hear a piano, like
that's
just
creepy,
just something hitting, just keys, not even playing any music. You're like, that would be so weird. And yeah, it's like it's
Todd, do you remember what that inscription said that was on that rock on that piano?
Oh geez, yeah,
it was weird.
It said something like you were meant to be here right now, something like that.
It was weird, Jeremiah.
Like a rock that was painted, and it was just sitting there, and it was like, no, that's kind of weird. And yeah, I remember when went back, that rock wasn't there, so somebody probably took it with them when they found it. But it's like, yeah, like what am I meant to be here for? When you really, if you sit down and think of it.
Yeah, that's weird, guys. What did you go back to the outpost and share with that lady? Like, okay, here's what we found. It was a little weird.
We did. And she told us, was like, I have seen, because we were getting real close to the trip now. She was the one that suggested we do the trip, and she'd said she'd seen 3 juveniles, and I was like, how often do you see them? And she goes, when I go up there, they come around. And I was like, I told Todd, we need to go with her. She seemed to know a lot, and I don't know what you call her, Todd. What is she, a medium? She could read auras, and she knew a lot. I look for her every time we go up there to ask her just questions in general, because about the crazy thing that happened up there. But she knew, without getting so I'm going to jump to the end real quick, just so this little tidbit, and then we'll start at the beginning. But me and Todd was having breakfast, and I was like, I got to go talk to Jim. That was just a weird night. So I went in to see him, and the other 2 people, I don't think they would mind us giving their name. They were in there at the same time, and they were talking to Jim's wife about what had happened, because he had left early. He was out with his friend doing some research real early in the morning. They were over talking to his wife, and we walked up to this lady, and she goes, something happened last night, didn't it? And I was like, well, and she goes, were you 2 with those 2 over there? And I was like, yeah. And she goes, oh, dear Lord. She knew that this, kind of jumping ahead, but she knew that this girl, I don't even know how to describe her, Jeremiah, but she said she's had dogmen sightings. She draws things. She could talk to ghosts. I was like, I don't want any part of that. But this lady, as soon as she seen that, she goes, something happened. You got to sit here and talk to us. So that was after the trip. And it's like she could read everything. She knew. She said something happened. And I said, yeah, something happened. And I don't think it was Bigfoot. But she was like, nope, it was totally Bigfoot. And she said they pick on a certain person. And for your viewers, in case they run into a situation, she told me if I would have said out loud, you're scaring me, stop. She said they usually will stop. And I was like, why didn't Jim tell us that before any of this happened? But it's time to get into the crazy story now. You want to start it? Well, okay. You know what? I'll start it because the things happen to me first, and then right when we start getting into the canyon, I'll go over to Todd. So we show up, and I told Todd, I was like, I didn't know Jim, from Joe, but I knew he had guided Bigfoot tours and he had backpacking and camping tours. And I told Todd, I'm skeptic. I think he's going to sit out there and have some friends bang on some trees and holler back. And I would be the one to jump of anybody. And so I told Todd before going in, I said, I'm going to basically, for a better term, I dope myself up. So I took beta blockers, some anti-anxiety medicine, some clonidine that slows your heart rate. I said, Godzilla could have jumped in front of me and it should not have affected me. I should have been like, whoa, because everything should have been really, let's just say my flight or fight should not have kicked in. It would have been impossible. But we get out. He goes to the part of I think we could, again, I don't know. That's one of his spots. So we show up at this park and he goes to one side and he goes, I'm worried that we might get trapped in here. Let's go around. Did you guys see where the hours is? He said he knew the people in the park. And I said, I didn't see it. So we ran over. He wanted to go to one spot. And he said, well, I'm going to take you to a second spot. What I told Todd, I hope the people were real cool. We ran into a gentleman about our age and his daughter. And I was like, oh, thank God. I thought we'd run into some people we wouldn't like, but they were really nice and we got along well. And we had read the Bigfoot report and seen a movie, I think it was Terror in the Woods with two ladies that was on Kenosha Pass and a Bigfoot had chased them down. And it's on the BFRO website there. She reported to that and to the police. And so I was hoping we were going to Kenosha Pass, but we ended up going to another one of his spots. We get out. I have so much things. I bought this infrared flare. I had so many things, Jeremiah, on me. I was a real greenhorn. I had everything. I was prepared. I thought. We step out and not even 20 feet from the car, Jim goes, I want you guys to look at this. This is a Bigfoot break. And I went to look and I was like, now, how do you know it's a Bigfoot break? And he goes, it's been twisted. And looking at it, it did. It looked like something that you would put your hands on and twist an object, almost like a slinky. It was so crazy that it was one of the few trees in the park right by that parking lot. And he goes, Bigfoot did that. We walked up. So it was Jim. It was this gentleman. I don't think they would mind us saying their names, but I'm just going to leave them out. So it was Jim and a gentleman, his daughter, me and Todd. I'm bringing up the rear. I'm trying to get all my stuff situated. We're talking to her and she said, yeah, we live close to Utah. And she said, by where that we don't say its name. And her dad said, what are you talking about? And she goes, we don't say its name. And I said, what are you talking about? And she goes, the TV show. And I was like, are you talking Skinwalker Ranch? And she flipped out. She was like, shh, we don't say that. We don't bring that kind of mojo to us. It's going to be bad luck. And she grabbed my arm at that point. This is just a whole bunch of circumstances going up there. She grabs my arm. She said, we don't say that. We don't ever, that's going to bring bad mojo our way. So somehow I trailed behind them trying to get things. I feel the best way to describe it, Jeremiah, is someone's pulling my shirt. I turn around, there's no one there. Walk a little bit, pulls again. I was like, this got to be static cling. But I have a shirt on. I have a sweatshirt because it's supposed to be cold at night. I have a backpack on, but I could still feel towards the lower part of my back, my shirt being pulled. Freaked me out. So I walked up to Todd and said, will you get behind me because I'm worried about losing one of I had so much equipment on me. And he said, sure. He did that and it stopped. And I was waiting for him to scream, someone's pulling my shirt, but he never did. We go up a little farther. Now we're getting to the canyon. I'll let Todd jump in and we'll kind of go back and forth, but we're getting to the canyon now and it's getting darker.
So going back a little bit, like what Mike said, we went to the one area and Jim was afraid they were going to lock the gate on us. So we went back out and parked at another area and he showed us the tree break and he kind of explained, we asked him why he says that's Bigfoot. And he said, well, it's twisted. But then he said how trees don't usually break in the middle. They don't usually break 6-8 feet up. They break at the bottom, they break at the top, and they usually don't do that from snow load. And if it is snow load in Colorado or wind, they usually blow over because the soil is shallow, so the roots are shallow. And you see that all the time here. So, it's kind of okay, so this is what we should maybe be looking for, add that to the knowledge kind of thing. We got to we kind of were cutting, we weren't on trail, we were kind of cutting through to get to the trail. And once we got to the trail, there's a creek it's a small creek. It's real shallow, maybe ankle deep at the most, but it's not like I wouldn't say it's a canyon, like vertical wall canyon, but it's steep on both sides. It's not something you're just going to walk up. It's going to take some effort. So it kind of, when you get to that part, you start feeling a little closed in. The guy we were with, he's a hunter, and he kind of said how he wasn't necessarily comfortable with that, knowing there's mountain lions and stuff, and you're giving them, we're taking the low ground and giving them the high ground. But Jim also explained that that's kind of what we're trying to do for the Bigfoot, to make them more comfortable to come see us. We're being vulnerable, and it's like one of those like, okay, cool, but I don't know if I'm all right with that. It's like, this, I don't, it just seemed, it's getting dark, and, you don't usually just go out on a hike somewhere with, a couple of strangers and, hope for the best. But we went, and I'm like, since it's been a while, I'm like, we came across a spot. The guy we were with, and we were in the front at that point. We kind of like rotated, and we were chatting and stuff on the way, getting to know each other. Hey, what do you know, and how do you feel about this, and that kind of thing. But we hit this like smell, and I didn't know how to explain it at first, but it was, it was it's exact like how other people say there was nothing, and then all of a sudden it's just a strong smell. It smelled like, the guy that we were with said it smelled like rotting salmon, and there was something else there too. But it was like, yeah, that's like if you just like left a salmon that you caught, just lay it out in the sun all day, it's gonna smell pretty bad. But it was just weird how like you could step into it, step out of it, and we were all like, yeah, we all smell the same thing. It's there, it's not there. And it's getting dark, and Jim kind of explained, well, maybe it's a dead animal on the side hill, and because it's coming the evening, the cool air is coming downhill, and it's following down that way. He went off on the side, trying to find whatever, and we're like, dude, you're crazy, because if it's like a mountain lion kill, you probably don't want to come upon that, not knowing what's all up there. But it was really weird at that point. And I actually went back up to this area. This was Saturday night. I went back up on Wednesday and kind of wanted to see it during the day so I could justify some things to myself. And that smell was still there, and it wasn't any better or any worse. And I was doing the same thing: step into it, step out of it, step into it, step out of it. And I actually like had a thing of chalk, and I drew chalk on the rock of like the borders, and it's like, that is really weird. Like I would think if it was a dead animal, that it would have, in the summertime in August, it's going to either get worse or get better. Something's going to drag it off, finish eating it. Like the people that the rangers or whatever in the park would have found that there've been there's plenty of hikers that go through there, like something. But it's just weird that the smell was just like in the middle of the trail. You got off on the sides, it really wasn't there. But it was kind of I don't know. I don't know. I had this like nervous tension, anxiety going into this of not knowing what might or might not happen. And you're anticipating the unknown and hoping for the best. Like, we're there to see Bigfoot, but what are we going to do if we see Bigfoot? Like that kind of thing. But, it was just like we go from like tree break, and then we get the smell thing, and you're like, okay, that's another thing on the list. Like, this is all going in the direction we want it to, I think. So it was, but I was trying to be the kind of being skeptical at the same time, like hopeful, but being like, oh, who knows? Like I don't think that this has to be anything, but it sure sounds like it could be something. I don't know, Mike, you want to do the next part?
Yeah, this whole night is like a movie clip in my head. I was so traumatized. I got everything to a T. We walk into, I'm going to use B for the boy, the dad, and K for the girl. That's their first initials. So B's in front of me and says, "Oh, you smell that?" And K said, "No, I didn't smell anything." And then I walked into it, and Todd, right, it's a wall. Kay said it smelled like rotten salmon. I walk in and I was like, it's like dead fish and like roadkill. It was so bad. I can't even describe it. I've never smelled anything like that. And Jim goes, "Where is it?" And I was like, "I don't know. I don't smell anymore." We step back and it's literally just this wall of funk in the trail. So Jim said, "Where are you smelling it?" And he goes, "Oh, dear Lord." He goes, "I think that's kill some, a mountain lion has maybe killed something and has it up here." He goes, "Give me a hand." I gave him my walker that I had, my, what do you call that, Todd? The stick.
Hiking pole.
Hiking pole. So yeah, thank you. I gave him that. He walked up there because he had a knee brace on. I was worried about him falling. I kind of go up with him and he's digging around in the bushes with that pole, trying to see if he could find something dead up there. And I was like Todd said, we were like, "Jim, that's not a good idea. If there's a mountain lion kill right there, you're going to get pounced on. That thing could be anywhere here." So he came down. He couldn't find anything. He said, "There's nothing right here." And I was like, "There is something right here. It is so strong." We go up a little bit. It's getting dark now. And Jim says, "Let's stop at this little, it was like a little resting area right next to that creek." Jim goes, "All right, at this time, I'm going to calm the savage beast." And he goes, "I'm going to sing." He started singing, so we let him do his singing, and he goes, "Everybody close their eyes and pray to the Sasquatch and let them know that we're not here to harm them, and we mean good intentions, and how you feel and what you'd like, maybe they'll show themselves." So this sounds bad, Jeremiah, but I was like, "All right, Bigfoot, I'm here. I'd like to see some proof. If you're out there," I said, "please throw something at my friend's head." This is going to go on later. It did not happen this night, but Todd's got some stuff to tell you a little later after this trip. So we're sitting there doing a little chants and everything. And Todd, I'm talking to Jim. I was like, "Yeah, I got these." He was like, what'd you bring? And I said, "I got these cool night vision that you could see." I was like, and he said, "Oh yeah, I've seen that before." He had a little monocular. And at that point, Todd taps me on the shoulder and said, "Do you see that?" And just out of my peripheral vision, I was talking to Jim. I was turning towards Todd. Well, I could see between the two trees, it was like dark and then light. And I was like, "There's something right there." And Jim goes, what are you guys looking at?" He's looking up there. It's getting dark down there in the valley, but the top of the hill, you could see the light a little bit. And I was like, something moved up there. I couldn't tell you what it was. I just seen it, the space get dark when Todd was like, "Do you see that standing up there?" And so at that point, I look at Jim and I'm looking at my watch because I've been doing a lot of David Pilati stuff and the missing time. My watch was going perfect and my phone was perfect. I was like, I'm going to record some of this on my phone as we're talking his chanting and everything. And I forgot to, but grab my night vision goggles that I didn't know had audio on it. The audio kicked on. I told Jim it's not working. And he said, what do you mean it's not working? I was like, it's not working. I can't get it to work. It just was working a second ago. So he started fooling around with it. He couldn't get it to come on either. I was like, what the heck? I was like, and he said, well, Bigfoot drains energy, from batteries, phones, and all this. And I was like, my night vision's not working at all right now. So I couldn't see where Todd seen that thing up on the hill. I couldn't look through it because my night vision wasn't working. Todd, did you want to add some to that?
Yeah. So, well, after Jim did his song and we were talking to the forest kind of thing, the guy we were with, he did an elk call, was like an elk bugle. And then his daughter did a scream, and she had this like banshee scream.
It was a banshee scream.
Was like, I was next to her and I was like, oh geez, my ears. But it was like, that was a good scream, like whatever's out there sure heard us, doing our thing. So, but yeah, we were sitting there just kind of just chatting and just, doing our thing. And yeah, I sat on a rock where I was kind of facing across the trail, and I'm staring across the trail and I'm like, man, there's something moving over there. And it was like darker than the leaves on the trees. Like it was like almost like a shadow moving. But I was just sitting there staring at it for a while. And I'm like, it is legitimately, it's not just one area. Like I'm following it from like left to right. And it's like thinking, man, I'm seeing things. Like it's just me. Like it's the nerves. It's, but I'm just staring at it. And then I'm like, I got to say something. And Mike was the closest to me. So I'm like, do you see this over here? And it's literally just across the trail. It was like 15, maybe 20 feet away, which is dang close for anything at that point. And it was, I didn't hear anything, but we were next to the creek that it's pretty loud for the size of it. It's because it's flowing through, it's pretty much solid rock that it's going through, and it like probably wouldn't, we're trying to listen for it, but it's getting, whatever's over there is definitely not making enough noise, more than the creek. So it was like, it's just weird, with, him pulling out, and like it doesn't work. And I don't know, it not too long after that, like nobody else seemed to see it, but we were like, all right, let's go further up the trail. And as we're going, Jim, it's getting darker. It's like literally about the same time at night, same level of brightness. Maybe that's probably a little darker than it is currently right now. And it's like 8:30 here. So the sun's fading pretty quick at this point. But but when we get up, it's dark then. So Jim tells us about the eye glow and how, well, one of the things on our list to bring were binoculars. And I was like, why would we need binoculars at night? Like what good's that going to do? And when we get to this point, he explains that because you see a point of light, you get out your binoculars and you see two. So and he's like, that's, they're further, you're seeing them from further away. It looks like one, and then you have the binoculars. So of course, didn't have my binoculars because it was like, we don't need binoculars at night. But he was also saying, it's best to see them using your peripheral vision. So I'm walking, like turning my head to the side, kind of looking up the trail the best I can as it's getting dark, and doing side to side, and like putting my chin on my shoulders and like looking up, and like lifting my head up and looking, down my nose, kind of thing. See, hey, can I see anything? Pretty sure it was Jim was like, there's eyes up ahead. And I was like, moving my head. I'm like, oh yeah, I see. I think I see what you're talking about. That we're going up a hill, and it looked to me like it would be almost like they were up in a tree, or they were like way up the trail. But it's hard to tell, perspective wise at that point. But it was super exciting because we were just talking about it, and that's like what you're here to see. And it was like, okay, so I'm seeing, talking to Jim, like I'm seeing it's like a light yellow amber color. He's like, yeah. He's like, and he's like, if you're watching them and they blink out, and it's like, yeah, I'm seeing that too. And the whole time there wasn't any real breeze or anything, so it wasn't like, it was a light in the distance and trees, the trees and the leaves were blowing, kind of thing. It was like we're all standing there looking at it like yeah, like that's what I'm seeing. And then we spent a couple minutes there, and then the other thing at this area, there's camping allowed, but you're not allowed to have campfires. And knowing where the camping is allowed was like, and we were down in the little canyon thing, so we wouldn't have seen it anyway. It would have been like to our left and behind us at that point. So it wasn't a camper with a headlamp in the distance or anything like that. And we're there and it's dark. There shouldn't have been anybody coming the other way, and we didn't have anybody come the other way. So, it wasn't that. But we spent a couple of minutes just kind of just observing and seeing what was going on. And then, I don't know, we just, Jim decided that, like, let's move on, keep going up the trail. And we didn't go very far after that. We just stopped and turned around to look back down the trail. And there's this same thing, this glow up in the tree, like what I presumed was in the tree. It's because this is too high. And if it would have been a Bigfoot, it would have been a 30-foot tall Bigfoot. So that's not what it was. But it seemed like it was in the tree to me. Like we were still looking up on it, but we were on the higher ground than we were before. So wasn't sure if we walked far enough to walk past the first one, or there was one in front of us and one behind us at that point. But still watching it, and it was moving. And it was surely like it was on and off kind of thing, blinking. But then that's when the other thing started to happen. I'll probably let Mike explain his part of this, because he was probably the
most affected.
Yeah, the most affected, the biggest experiencer on this. And like the rest of us were kind of, some of us saw it, some of us didn't, kind of thing.
So,
But we all have
yeah.
a little different perspective on it.
So, Jeremiah, as we're going up, what Todd forgot to tell you was a biker came down with his light on. And that's going to lead to what I see next. He almost took me out. He was going down pretty fast, and I did not hear Jim say to the side because a biker was coming down. And I think Todd actually helped me because I didn't hear it. Got me to the side as this biker comes flying down that hill, and it was dark. I could make out the biker as he was going by us, but without his light, I would have not known he was there, and I would have got taken out. But we go up a little farther, as he was saying, they seen some eyes. I didn't get to see the eyes at that time because they had the monocular and the binoculars and stuff was looking, and at this time my night vision still was not working. What I didn't know, it was recording the whole time. I didn't even know there was a record on there. So it was recording audio the whole time. We go up. We did do we stopped when Jim and Todd had seen something and Kay had seen something on the hills. I was looking real hard. I wanted to see it. I couldn't find where they were looking at. But we go up to a little area and he goes, "This is a good place to stop." And like he said, that's when they started seeing some amber. Or they seen some, at first, they seen some eyes. And as I went looking back, as I looked back down the trail, and I thought it was on the trail, but apparently it was higher, I said, "Oh gosh, here comes another biker." That's what it looked like. It was that whitish color, like light blue color kind of mixed in there, but one. Jim looked at it and says, "It's not one. There's eyes there." Well, him and Todd are looking at it too. They're seeing amber. I'm seeing a whitish blue glow. And the gates of hell then opened up at that point. Jim is leaning against Todd's shoulder looking. I sat down just to take a break. Kay, the girl, is sitting next to me taking a break, and her dad is up. And and he's doing some weird, he said, "Talk. Don't be quiet if you see stuff. Keep talking because we don't want to scare them away. We want to draw them in." He said, "So if somebody says, 'Look, look, look,' keep talking." He said, Don't be quiet." At that point, they're looking, and I'm looking at this white thing, and they said, "No, it's two. It's eyes." And I said, "I see one white, bluish, almost like an orb that I could describe." They said it's two sets of eyes, almond colored or almond red. I didn't see that. I seen a blue-white light. At that moment, I noticed, and then in front of me, something looks weird. It's like it's distorting. I told Jim, "Do you want me to let you know when weird things are happening?" And he said, "Yeah, what's going on, Mike?" I said, "There's like hundreds of these fireflies flying towards us right now, just 20 feet out, coming towards us." And Jim was like, "Anybody else see that?" No one else seeing it. Then Kay, the girl, said, "Yeah, I see them now. They're coming. They're almost right in front of us." I said, "They're all over the place. I can almost reach out. They look like little ants with glowing butts." I was like, "Where are they?" They just came off trail. It was what the lady at the Sasquatch outpost said was a portal opening. All kinds of bugs. I'm seeing that. Todd's next to me and saying, "I'm seeing some kind of," I'll let him explain, and then I'll go into what it was crazy at that point on. But Todd's seen what, Todd? It was like a glimmer, a black, or
Like what? It took me a little bit to figure out what Mike was talking about. I'm looking above where this is going on, and he's talking about this thing that is basically the trail that we just came up. So it's down lower, and once I figured out like what he's describing it and being like, "Okay, so this is what I'm trying to look for." I see it, and it was just like, kind of like it wasn't like a defined shape kind of thing. It was just it's just an area, in front of us that but it looked like, I don't know. I was trying to think of trying to describe it as like TV static. Like it's moving, like quivering kind of thing. I get migraines, and when I do the aura from it, it's like when you're like if your computer monitor gets a little funky and starts like shaking on you, and you get a little blur in that area. That's what it looked like to me, like something in one of those two things combined, both of them. But it was really, it was weird because I'm like, there's a blurry spot on the trail, and I'm not getting a migraine. I know that because I'm seeing fine everywhere else, just this one area. And it was really weird. And like as it's going on, like Mike starts sounding more anxious to where I'm like, is he okay? Like I'm like, we're here together. I'm afraid he's going to get up and take off like one way or the other, and just to be like, don't run. Like it's dark. You're going to break an ankle kind of thing. Or, just those concerns. But I was standing there. Mike was to my left and Jim was behind me. He was using my shoulder as kind of a support. He's not seeing it. I think looking back, like I couldn't see where he was pointed for sure, but I think he was looking above it to where the eyes were and not below, to where what we were seeing. But yeah, it was definitely weird. I've never seen anything like that. And I didn't know what to do myself. Like, do we get away from it? Do we go? What do we do? Like, is it going to come towards us? Is it, something going to come out of this thing? Like, I don't know what it was, but it was just weird that we were seeing these eye glow, and then this other thing happens that's I really no real explanation other than from hearing other people. It could have been a portal.
How far away from it was you, Todd?
Oh, it was. Just trying to think of like the size. It was maybe like 30 feet, 40 feet.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But it was after the fact of it was on the trail that we just walked through. Like if it was there before we walked through that. The other way I could think to explain it was because I just saw it recently. We were out, and when you see the little gnats that kind of swarm, and if you see them and the light just catches them in the right way, like you notice them. You don't always see them from a distance, but then you get closer and then it's like it was like a swarm of those, but it was weird for me. I was just trying to be like, just keep it together, like don't do anything dumb at this point because we don't know what that is.
Yeah, Todd, we never talked about that, Jeremiah, how far we thought that was. 30 feet was that's probably reasonable. That's about where I was thinking too. So I'm seeing these gnats. I'm to the right. Todd's next to me. Jim's on the other side of Todd. B is on the side. The guy is on the side of Jim. Hey, the girl is right in front of me, almost touching me. She starts to see it. And her dad's like, "What do you see?" And she goes, "Oh, right here. They're little fireflies or something. There's something weird right in front of us. They're coming towards us." She tells her dad, "I don't like this. I don't feel good. Something is not right. It feels evil." As soon as she said that, Jeremiah, they're talking about these eyes in the tree, Todd and Jim. I look up to where they're seeing these eyes. I see blue, that bluish white again. I don't know how to describe it. I don't think it was an eye. I really think it was an orb, small orb. I would say tennis ball size. And it was putting off an amount of light. Again, it was It was light, but it wasn't like a flashlight shining out. I could see it. At that moment, where that light was, something, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like it metamorphosed a blob, a black blob. As dark as it was, this was, I don't, the best way to describe it, it was darker than night, the pitch dark of night. And it's going up this tree. It's on the edge of this huge pine that we're looking at, and it's morphosing up to the top. At that time, I panicked. I told Todd, "You have your gun." He said, "Yeah." And I was like, even though in my heart I knew a gun wasn't going to do anything to that because it didn't seem physical. Kay told her dad, said, "Dad, do you have your gun?" And he said, "Yes, baby, I have it." And Jim was packing too. I told Todd, "Get your gun ready." I don't know why I said that because I don't know what shooting would have done at it. I think it was just a comfort to know that we had a gun. But in my heart, Jeremiah, I knew that whatever I was seeing, we couldn't stop it. I lost it. I had started sweating. I felt like I was sitting on a rock and I had to grab this rock with all my might to the right side towards Todd because I thought I was sliding down into the creek. My balance was off. I was having a massive panic attack, which shouldn't have happened, not with that medicine. I had never been in the fight or flight like that. Jim couldn't understand what I was seeing. He did not see what me and Todd and the girl was seeing. She didn't say anything about a portal, but she said, "I see the bugs. I see them. It's weird. It's like they're coming after us." And it just built and built up and built up. And Jim used Todd as like a tripod, tried to get his monocular and was looking. And he said, "Where are you seeing this?" And I said, "It's in the tree. It's in the tree. It's rolling to the ends of the branches. It's rolling up like a blob." That's the only way I could describe it. A big black blob going up. And the Kay's dad said, "Well, maybe it's a Bigfoot, baby Bigfoot." And I was like, there is no way anything could be on the edge of these pine limbs and not move them. They weren't moving at all, but it was going up almost. I don't know. That's why I thought paranormal. I thought ghost or alien or something. I was like, this is weird. And Kay started screaming to her dad, "We need to get out of here. We need to get out of here now." And he said at that point, he was like, "They've got whatever it is, they've got the high point on us. We're sitting down." He goes, "Jim, this is not safe. If we're going to get attacked, we're in trouble. We got a little bit of a cliff, a slight incline down to the creek." He said, "We are sitting ducks right here." So we started going down the trail. I actually had to have Todd help me because I was so shaken. I couldn't get up. I almost fell down. I was tripping over myself. Todd was helping me, and the girl was helping me too as we went down. Jim and I got nervous getting near that big tree, and I told Todd, "I want to be against the wall, the other side of the wall, opposite of that tree where I seen that stuff." I said, "I don't want to go." And I could see the tree. I knew which one it was. I was like, it was a big pine. I said, "I don't want anywhere near that pine. That thing's going to jump out on us." We start walking down there, I would say 15, 20 feet ahead of us. It's Kay, it's me, it's Todd's behind me. I had Todd, but Todd was behind me helping me. All at once, all three of us stop at the exact same time. I put my hand back so Todd doesn't run into me because it's dark. I put my hand in front. She looks to the right. I look to the right up the hill. She said, "Did you hear that?" I said, "Yeah, I heard that." And Todd said, "What'd you all hear?" Kay said, "I heard footstep, like a twig break, and laughter of like kids." And they looked at me and I said, "I heard one big stomp, like if something was on a rock and stepped down like a human. It was like a boom, almost like a percussion of a heavy step to the right of us. And it was close. We're all staring. This thing could have been 10 feet away from us, and it was so dark we wouldn't have seen it, but we're all looking right at it. And my heart's going just a million beats a minute. Todd said, "I heard," I think he said, "a twig break and laughter," but he said down where the creek was, which made sense for me because my left ear, when I was young, I did fireworks and damaged my hearing on that left side. So I would not have heard something on the left side. And the creek was muffling it out. But they heard laughing. We called Jim back, and Jim said, "What did you all hear?" And I was like, "Something heavy stepped." And I heard the percussion of the step, like it stepped off of a rock or a log and went boom. And as soon as it did that boom, it stopped. I was keen in on right there. We were all staring. Jim comes up and says, all right, let me get he's looking at his binocular. He said, where at? And I was like, it's right here. I mean, it is close to us that we're here. We all heard at the same time. He couldn't find it. There is no way it moved away from us. That was just crazy. And I'll let Todd explain what he heard too at this moment. Then we'll go on from there.
Yeah. So we all the three of us heard what we each heard, and it was at the same time. I heard that laughter, and I didn't say anything. I was like, this is my mind playing tricks on me. Like it was just me. Nobody else heard that, but I heard it. It's some, I would say the other side was the twig break. And it would just be something small, like small dry twig, like just, nothing big, but it's really obvious that, something over there broke a twig. But I didn't say about the laughter at first, because I wanted to see if the other people heard it too. But it was just that. It was like creepy, like little kid laughter. And yeah, thinking about it, if that's what it was, it was really creepy. It was almost like at that point, like something was messing with us, trying to scare us out or whatever. But then it's kind of, well, sort of funny after that, as we're walking out and we're out of the canyon part, and it flattens out and there's like a meadow and stuff, but we kind of came around the turn on the trail and we see what we thought was more eye glow in the distance, and it was kind of one of those like, oh, there's two and there's four, there's like eight, like, and it was just one of those, what is going on? Like, I am not, like, this is the way back to the truck, like there's a whole family of them down here, like they're just waiting for us, like. But Jim was he was in the back, and he kind of comes around the corner, and he sees what we're talking, and he's like, took a second, and then he was like, oh, those are just houses on the other side of the mountain. But we're like, oh, thank God. Like, I was not ready to walk into like 10 Bigfoot at that point, like that. But it was the other part with that was, yeah, like we realized those were houses, and you kind of know, because it's like there's different colored lights. But how I said before, I went back on the Wednesday, and I went up the trail, and I was trying to find houses like from where we were at, and I had to go a good mile and a half past where we thought we saw the eye glow. And I found the house, like it was up on the side, it was tucked back in, and there were only a couple houses like way up, but they weren't really in that general direction. They would have been more off to the right if we would have been seeing the houses at night. It was going back in the daytime, a total different experience, because it doesn't feel as closed in, and it doesn't feel it's the walls on the side or didn't seem as steep and stuff, but it was still enclosed, and just kind of rejudging distances and stuff like that. But I'm like, this is where we had the smell, this is where we stopped, and I saw the shadow. This is where we stopped and turned around, and we saw whatever that was on the trail. And yeah, it was, I don't know, in my mind, I felt better about going back there during the day.
One part that Todd forgot was it's all about timing, and I'm not lying. I'm the real life Charlie Brown. If something's going to happen, it will happen to me. I got so nervous I had to take a bathroom break, and so did Jim.
Oh,
And Jim made a comment at that time, said, "Wow, with the things going tonight, it'd be surprising if I think it was Jim that said that it'd be surprising if you're going to take your bathroom break and look up and there's a Bigfoot." And I was like, "Oh, please no, there's bushes right above me." So I'm just starting and I hear scream, "No way, no freaking way." Just at that exact moment in the canyon we had stopped, you could see the canopy of the sky for just a little bit above us. And she goes, "What in the freak is that?" And Todd looked up and was like, "What is that?" And they saw Starlink. There was just a little part of open trees there that they could see but the way the day was going on, like Kay said, I wouldn't be surprised if it was a UFO. But going down when we ran into those cabins with the lights, she panicked. She was like, "They're surrounding us." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, just let me get out of this place. I will never go back here again." We get back to the truck and Jim goes, "Oh, are you guys done for the night?" And all of us were like, "Nope." I said, "Jim, I will never go back to that spot ever again, but let's go if you got another spot." So he takes us to this creepiest spot. I would tell you the name because I can't even remember what it was. Todd might. But it has grass and bushes and trees so thick. If I took 2 steps off that dirt road there, you would not see me. I could grab people as they were walking by. And Jim brought up that they had some issues with somebody had kidnapped some kids or something up in that area. And just as he said it, we ran into this white creepy van on the right side. I was like, "You've got to be kidding me." So we go up and he goes, "Let's just sit here and listen." He said, "Because a lot of times I've been up here with my researcher and we'll hear whoops and see some eye glow." No sooner did he say that than we seen two red eyes and then another set of red eyes, and we heard whoop. I was like, "No way. We just heard our first whoop from a Bigfoot ever." Everybody was like, "Whoa, that's so cool." And it turned out there was some teenage or young kids that was Bigfoot hunting, had red lights on and came. That kind of tore Jim off. So he decided to leave, and I'll let Todd. We ran into some freaky guy that spotlighted us. But as we left, we stopped, and again, there's a meteor shower right above us. I was like, what? Everything is just happening at the perfect time. We get off this road, tell everybody goodbye, start to head back. Somebody comes up on me and Todd real fast with their lights flashing. I was like, "Oh, maybe that's Jim. Maybe we left something." And Todd turned around and was like, "It's not Jim. Don't stop." They're flashing me and right on my rear. We're going around these canyon walls. I was like, this is going to be the time that some deer, bear, or Bigfoot's going to run right in front of me. I'm going to have to slam on my brake, and this yo-yo behind me will hit me in the rear. That happened for about 20 minutes. We turned, what was that, east, Todd, on to, is that 85, 285? We turned east. They went the other way, thank God. But I could not be for that night to be over. I went home and I was calculating in my head, there's no way this happened. This had to be that. This had to be this. I wanted to talk to Todd, and he was tired from the event. So all night I'm just calculating and listening to every sound. Todd, did you want to tell him about whatever that spooky person was with the spotlight?
Oh, yeah. When we were coming back down we were parked at a trailhead, and it was a decent sized parking area. It wasn't just off, a couple cars on the side of the road. But we were coming back down, and after talking about like how kind of creepy it was and seeing like the kidnapper van and stuff on the way up, there's a house on the left, and Jim was driving in his truck, and it was just a normal pickup truck. It's not like we had like off-road lights, or he didn't even have his high beams on. And like there's this house on the side up on the hill, and they're like, see, their lights were on, and they start like spotlighting us, and we're like, "What's that all about?" That we weren't going fast. We weren't making noise, other than the engine basically and the sound of driving on the rocks. But yeah, it was weird. And then yeah, we got back to where we all parked on the side of the road. Jim went home, and we talked to B and K a little bit, and saw the meteor shower. They were camping in a tent. We were like, have fun with that. Like, we got a cabin. Like, at least we have some solid walls. But yeah, driving out that road going back to 285, and that car came up. It was one of those like out of nowhere. And yeah, with them flashing their lights and everything, I was like, this isn't cool at all. And I just told Mike, don't stop, don't pull over. Like it seems like a bad situation. But yeah, we got out the 285, and I was like, there's a gas station out there. If we got to pull over, that's where we pull over, and at least like someone will, be a witness to whatever might happen. But it was just a weird way to kind of end the night. And then yeah, we went back to the cabin we were staying at, and it was like obviously had an adrenaline spike along the way. I know I had one whenever we were sitting in the truck, and we saw the red lights, and then we heard the whoop, and it was like, they're here too. Like it was like this like huge thrill, but like we're sitting there like in the dark, like almost waiting for like this Bigfoot to like come like shake the truck or slap the truck or something at that point from other people's stories. But yeah, it was like 4 or 5 college kids, I'm guessing, that were coming down, but they had these weird red lights that were kind of like they looked like lasers, and that as they were like, we saw like just a red light, and then as they got closer you could see it like it was like a laser kind of thing. But we kind of, I don't know, kind of wrote that off as they were out, well, they were either just out drinking, making noise, but they were probably out like trying to find Bigfoot too, just being loud about it and all that. But it was it was super disappointing at that point, because you're like, this is it, or this is the next step, and it wasn't anything. But yeah, finding out like, yeah, Jim was not happy about that. And well, the funny part was we were sitting there with the lights out and everything, and we sat there for a few minutes, not making a noise, and then all of a sudden he just like turns his lights on, turns the engine on, and the people, they're 20 feet away from us at that point. They just freaked out, like, oh my God, there's people there. Like, so we at least got them back a little, if nothing else.
Yeah, that night my nerves would have been shot along with you guys. There's a few things you said where I just don't have any explanation for them. One, the blob you saw going along the tree branches, and then the shimmer as well. It kind of reminds me of some sightings people have had where it may be kind of a predator effect, or then you have you guys heard the Adam Davies account from Southern Oregon?
No.
It's an old one. Well, maybe about 10, 15 years ago, and seeing the portal in the woods somewhere in Oregon. And but they actually saw things come out of it. It's just weird stuff. After that night, did you guys continue to have weird stuff happen back at your homes, or was it just kind of like a one-time deal for you guys?
Oh, are you ready for this, Jeremiah?
Yeah.
So
I know where you're going.
I get home and I tell Todd, I have an alarm system in my house. It's Blink. Basically, why I have it, it's cameras. There's one in my room. There's one in the living room, the dining room, downstairs, and I have some outside. It's because my mom has dementia. So when we're away from the house, I want to make sure my mom's fine and hasn't fallen, or she's wandered outside a couple of times. So I have to call the neighbors if she's doing stuff. We try not to keep her at home alone because it's bad news when we do. So I have cameras on my house. I don't activate the inside ones ever because we're here and they'll go off all the time with our cats. I go back to work and I tell Todd, I sent Todd a picture. I was like, you got to see this. This is the craziest thing. My camera in my bedroom time lapsed. It wasn't on, but it time lapsed and showed me moving in the bed. So I wasn't sleeping good, but I was moving around. And then there's a photo that's right at the very end. It looks like, so I have my window. I have a king bed. I have a big window to the right, big window to the left. To the right, I keep that window up the shade, I keep it up about 2 feet so the cat can look out. If I don't, she tears up my blinds. This picture, the best way I could describe it is it looks like a spotlight in the window, bright light. And it looks like there is Christmas garland wrapped around my camera. That's about the best way I could describe it. I sent it to Todd, and Todd showed his wife, and his wife was like, Mike needs to burn sage around his house now. After that, weird things has been happening, and you hear the hitchhiker effect, and I'm telling people, be careful doing things. It's kind of spooked me, but weird things have been happening around the house. My mom thought she saw some big dude looking in the back. We have a back. She's been sleeping on the couch, and I don't know if it's the dementia or if it's actually her, but she said somebody big was looking in the back. I have a back door, and it's almost all glass, staring at her. She screamed. I got up, went running, flipped on the light. I didn't see anything. I couldn't find anything, but she wouldn't sleep unless I put a blanket to cover that door. So I did. There's a blanket up there now. But it's weird. The last couple of days before we called you, the lady in the Sasquatch outpost told me, said sometimes there's a hitchhiker effect. Sometimes they'll follow you home. And me and Todd gave me an interview with somebody in Denver where dogmen followed him home on an incident. And I told Todd, we ever run into dogmen, it's our last time going out. I don't want anything to do with that stuff. But I put in rocks outside my window here, my bathroom window, HI, just high. I was like, she said, sometimes things happen and around your house and you don't notice it. So with the weird things that's been going on, the rocks were moved, not into a word, which again, we have snakes, some bull snakes around here. Maybe they move the rocks. And I will find these white rocks around the house. It's just weird. We don't have any, it almost looks like crystal. The last 3 days, it sounded like a helicopter. I got a message from my neighbor. It said, did you hear the helicopter going over the house the other night? Said it. I looked out the window. I said, yeah, I heard it. It sounded like it was right on my roof. It was so loud. Our neighbor, Tom, looked out and said, there was no lights on it. I could see it. He said, I could make the outline because of the moon, but he said, there was no lights on it, and it was so loud. Jeremiah, it sounded like it was right on top. The night after that, we heard it again, but it wasn't as loud. Last night, I haven't even told Todd this. I haven't talked to him, but it's starting to warm up a little bit. So I have my bathroom window open, just cracked about 5-6 inches, and the cat can get in there. I usually don't. It freaks me out. That back part of the back door, it freaks me out. Although I do have my window open on the right side, I leave that, but the bathroom just freaks me out for some reason. But I lay in here, I hear a whistle. I swear to God, it was like, and I jumped up immediately. I was just getting ready to go to sleep. I hadn't yet. I just put my cell phone down, jumped up because I was like, oh crap, something's happened to my mom. Run out there. My mom and dad are both asleep. Come back in here, and I was like, oh no. I ran to the bathroom and lowered the window without looking out of it and locked it. I was like, nope. If there's something around here, I am not engaging. I don't want anything here. But it's just been weird things going around, and I can't I'm having some health issues, so I'm not sleeping in my bed right now. And when I've got a recliner right by my bed, and that's what I've been sleeping in. But when I lay in my bed, it's almost I have it's a fear, and I don't know what it is, but something doesn't want me to lay in the bed, so I come over here. The other day I tried to get in my bed, and 20 minutes later I was like, nope, coming back to the chair. I don't know if it's just nerves or what, but something is going on around here. It's weird, but I won't go back to that place at all. And I told Todd, I wonder if Kay transferred some kind of energy to me or something. And I don't know. I don't know what happened, but I had the worst night of my life when we went there. And Jim has asked me, are you guys coming up this year? And I was like, no, I can't do it. I've had some health. Oh, and I heard one of your shows, I think it was your show, about a detached retina. 3 months ago, I have a detached retina and 2 horseshoes. So I have a horseshoe tear. I see a bright light in my eye, go to the eye doctor, said it's in my right eye. I seen a bright light. It hurt. And he was like, no, right eye looks good. Month later, I go in there for my follow-ups year, whatever it is. He looks at my left eye and was like, can I dilate it? And I said, no, I got to go back to work. I can't. And he said, well, there's this test. It's your insurance won't pay for it, but I want to see there's something wrong with that eye. And I said, sure. Comes back and said, it's emergency, but not right now. But we got to get you down to Colorado because you got a horseshoe tear. I was like, okay. A couple days later, go down to Greeley. The surgeon goes, I can't do it here. We're going to have to send you to Longmont at a bigger facility because your eye detached, your retina detached. The next day I go down there and he was like, you got 2 horseshoe tears. And I said, what happened? What am I doing? He said, trauma to your eye. I was like, there's no trauma to my eye. And he said, well, it could be because you're getting up in age. And I was like, 2 horseshoe tears and a detached retina. I was like, you can't give any other answers. And we don't know. It's rare. He said it's very rare. And he tells me after they put this little nitrogen oxide bubble in my eye for the detached retina, you will have to have surgery in the next couple of months for cataract. Go to my eye doctor. I've been going to him for the last every 2 weeks. And he was like, where's your cataract? And I was like, what do you mean? He said, well, there should be a cataract. You should be having a cataract from that surgery. He said 98.2% of the population has that within 2-3 months. And I was like, Charlie Brown effect. I'm on the other side of the bell curve all the time. So knock on wood, no cataract, but it's just one weird thing after another. My health is I'm having health issues now with my lungs and heart. So I had to get this story out before, who knows? Because, only God knows when we're going to go.
Mike, I'm sorry to hear that you're having those health issues, and I hope that's able to turn around, man.
Thank you.
Wow.
There's one more thing I want to say real quick. My friend Bob that was in, always fishing with me, had these things that happened up there by Crystal and Granite, Kurt Gowdy State Park, and up in the Medicine Bow National Forest, the Snowy Range area up at Lake Owen. He was a skeptic, and he would always laugh. My mom would watch Finding Bigfoot, and I was like, younger, I was like, Bigfoot was definitely, caveman. Now it can't be anything but some kind of, to me, it's got to be some kind of interdimensional being, person. There's no way it's a caveman or a gorilla. No way. There's just too many weird things with it. But he used to hunt up there by Lake Owen as a crow flies, probably 5 miles up by Battle Mountain and the Continental Divide up in that area. And he would go up with about 10 or 12 people. I'd go up. I wasn't a hunter, but I would go and eat the food and fish. I would take off and fish from, away from them. And he would meet me a lot of times at Lake Owen or Rob Roy and fish. One time he gets up at 3:30 in the morning, Jeremiah, and will walk for 2 hours, get into a tree stand and hunt all day. The rest of the group like to roadkill, road hunt. So he wasn't into that. But one time something happened, and his story was that something came in. He doesn't know how. And this guy's a great hunter. Something snuck up on him, circled a tree around where he was at, took a big stinky crap, and then left. he was shaking and he would tell me something. And I was like, what is it? A squirrel? And my dad started laughing. He goes, no. And I was like, a bear. No. I was like, how big is it? He goes, I don't know. He never wanted to tell me. And we made fun of him because he was just one of those friends, you know, that it was, you have somebody in the group that always something happens to them that's funny. And I love this guy dearly. He passed away 3 years ago with COVID, but he had told, it broke my heart. So I'm probably going to hope I don't cry on this, but he broke my heart. He told somebody that he thinks he had a Sasquatch sighting or something similar to that. He wasn't sure what it was. It scared him so bad. He gave up that tree stand. He wouldn't walk back there anymore. He road hunt with his nephew and brother-in-law and stuff. And hearing that, I just wanted just to plead to everybody, you don't make fun of people, you know, and it's easy to mock people until you have that. But it broke my heart when I was at his funeral and knowing that he couldn't tell me stuff like that because we were laughing about it. I knew it was going to get me emotional. I miss you, buddy.
Thank you for sharing that. That I know that was hard to share, Mike.
It was. I miss him. I'm sorry, Jeremiah.
You're good. You're good, man.
It gets me hearing about it, and I've heard it before from you. And
Yeah.
I never met the guy. And I'm like, I totally understand how you feel about that.
Yeah. I wish I could talk to him now about it. But, you know, it's just, I was telling Todd, I got to get this out in case something happened. Nobody would know about, you know, these things. And you just got to be careful. He could bring stuff home. I've just had some weird stuff here and I haven't seen anything. And that whistle last night was just crazy. I was like, there's no way I'm going to come on this show. It's like, it just like things happen, you know, where some of your guests get blurred out. It's just like certain things, you know, it's just weird. You just can't explain it.
It's extremely weird. See, I didn't catch that the first time. You're saying the whistle happened last night.
Last night.
Oh my goodness, dude.
And it came from my bathroom window. It had to, because I thought it was my mom. I ran because she's in the living room. You know, I'm in this recliner chair and I got up and ran to her and they were both out. And I came in and was like, nope. Went right to the bathroom, put my hand into the curtain. I was like, God, something don't grab my hand. And I put that window down and I was like, nope, not going to respond, not going to do anything. But it's weird. And you know what? I live in rural area of Cheyenne. There's no trees for this. I'm out here and there's nothing. I mean, you get to these houses, there's trees, but there's nothing around here. I mean, there's no way something can come, you know, it's like 45 minutes away to get up into the tree area to come down to the plains here and not be seen, you know, just like that thing at the casino in Oklahoma. It's just weird. There's got to be more than they're just running to places. Oh, and again, Jeremiah, I'll end on a funny note. So my little wish, you know, if Bigfoot was real, to throw a rock at Todd.
Right.
Todd, do you want to tell him what happened to you?
Yeah, I was
at Wellington Lake.
Gonna add that. So I thought of something that I completely forgot about on our night hike, and this, like, on our way out, somewhere between the whole Starlink thing and the sounds or whatever, there was a helicopter flying at night. You know, just kind of weird. You know, we're all like, oh, that's weird. We're gonna have the black helicopter thing going on now.
Yeah.
And then I ruled that out sort of. But going back that Wednesday, you know, it was in the afternoon, and you know, from the spot I figured we were at, and looking at the trail map and the map of Colorado, that helicopter was heading towards Denver. So it could have been like a life flight helicopter or something like that. But it was just a weird coincidence. But it gets weirder because on that Wednesday, one of the cargo helicopters, the double rotor helicopter, the military ones, was flying basically the same path when I was leaving on my hike. And I was like, that's really strange because there's not really a military base where it came from. Where's it going to? What's it, what are they doing? Kind of thing. And I was like, it's just a weird coincidence. It's just a weird coincidence. But like, you don't generally get helicopters flying out in the mountains in Colorado. And I'm like, unless that's like maybe it's a flight path kind of thing. But I totally forgot about that whole helicopter thing too, and to the weirdness of the night. And then Mike saying about the asking him to throw something at me, and he didn't tell me that at the time. He tells me after the fact. But let me see. So last May in 2024, go up with my family to Bailey. I had back surgery on May 7th, and this was on the 19th. So technically, I had no business being out in the mountains and the woods, but I felt really good, and it was kind of we went to it's dispersed camping, but we were just going for the day. Having a fire, sitting around, just having a kind of chill day with the family. So where we were at, there's a giant boulder, and you kind of pull around it, and the other side of the road is a hillside that goes up, and there's rocks. So figured it was a good place for my kids to kind of explore and do whatever, keep them occupied. And didn't have my oldest there, but my middle child, my son, he's not real into Bigfoot, and he told me he doesn't believe in Bigfoot. But we found a nice branch, and we were doing some tree knocks, and he starts hitting this boulder, and it was like the best tree knock, like resonant sound that I could hear. He was doing that a few times. There's nobody around us. There was like some firewood at the next site down, and we gathered that, so we had a little extra wood. But we did our thing. We cooked dinner and stuff, and it was getting towards evening, and then started cleaning up. And I couldn't do that much, but I was just like kind of organizing things to be like, hey, put this in the car next, and do that, kind of directing more than anything. Well, I would be like, if I was, I don't know which direction compass wise I was facing, but we had a little folding table, and we had a Yukon, it was maybe 15 feet to my left. My son's like putting stuff in the back. My wife's behind me. And all of a sudden I like catch out of my peripheral something flying from over the Yukon, and like kind of straight line. Like you would throw a baseball. You're not like throwing it up high, lobbing it. It was thrown. It almost hit me in the calf, and it was thrown hard enough that I could feel the air. Like it was close. And it was moving pretty good. Well, I saw what it was. It was a pine cone. And the pine cones there are pretty big. It was probably like the size of the palm of your hand, so maybe like tennis ball size. And I saw it like hit the ground and skip across the ground. And immediately I was like, not cool, guys. I just had surgery. Like I don't need to be hit with something. I don't need to be hit with something that hard. Like that would have hit me. It would have hurt. And I'm sure I would have like jumped or like stumbled or whatever. Like it wouldn't have been a good situation. And they denied it. And I didn't believe them for the longest time. But the longer I got, I'm like, why would they do that to me? But they weren't in the right position to follow the line where it came from. It came from across the road and up the hill. So, we all kind of just were staring across the road, like, what's over there? Where would it have came from? It definitely didn't fall. Like my wife said, she saw it out of the corner of her eye too. And like actually, well, stupid me. Well, I was like, I got to see if there's something up there. So I go with my son. We go up the hill, and I'm like trying to like get out of him like he did it, but he was like, no, I didn't do it. Why would I do that? But we went up and couldn't see anything, or nothing seemed out of place or different from earlier because we went up there earlier. But off in the distance, back the road where we came from, there was this like loud, angry something yelling, angry, and it was like, I don't know what that is, but if that's what threw the pine cone, excuse me, I don't want to see it. But and I kick myself too because I'm like, I wish we would have stayed to see what it was, but I'm glad we didn't stay because maybe we didn't, if it's throwing stuff, it wants us gone. And I kind of think that's what it was. It was getting later, it wasn't dark, but it was early evening, and it was just a weird thing. But then I tell Mike about this, like, you'll never believe what happened to me. And he's like, yeah, our night hike, I asked him to throw a pine cone at you. And it's like, so where we were on the pine cone incident was south of Bailey towards Wellington Lake, which isn't that far from where we were on our night hike. I'm not sure straight line distance, driving wise, it would take a while because it's roundabout how you get there. But it was it's fairly close. I was, and it, basically whatever 8-9 months from our night hike, they would have had to go a mile a month. It's not unreasonable. And there's a lot of stories of stuff that way too. And then so smart me, we go back like literally the next week, and that spot was taken. So we went farther down the road and found another spot, and nothing really happened there. I went for a little walk, and I found a tree that was bent, and the tip was like in the dirt, so it was like fully bent over. And then again, it's a camping spot that we were just using during the day, but there was one of those like yellow rubber balls that you get them at Walmart that inflate, that was like away from the camping area, that seemed like it didn't just like roll down the hill kind of thing. But I was like, oh, that's kind of weird. And we actually, I gave it to my daughter to kind of keep her occupied, and we brought it home. And I joked with her that maybe we took Bigfoot's ball, and they're gonna want it back. And she said that we should probably give it back. And then the next thing that I did was we went back to that same road further down, went camping last August with my son. And we went up on a Friday, and we got set up and everything. I put out a recorder before we went to bed, and I woke up in the middle of the night to like people yelling, and it really freaked me out. It sounded like 3 or 4 people moving from my what would be from my right to left, if I was facing them, and I immediately thought it it sounds like like Indians going on an attack or something, like the way it was yelling, like the noise, and it was moving, like just running through the woods, and it was weird. But I was like, I don't know how I fell back asleep, but I was like super excited, like I'm gonna have that on recording, go listen to that tomorrow. Get up the next day, recorder didn't work at all. Um, the next day, there we had our dog too. That there were a whole bunch of turkeys in the morning. And the dog was chasing them around, and in the evening there were like 4 deer that came across on the road, and dog let us know there was something there, but the deer wouldn't go away. Like we got up, we walked towards them. I was like kicking the dirt road. They just were like whatever. So thought that was weird. We decided to call it a night about 10 o'clock. And the whole time there were people near us. You could hear voices, but you couldn't make out what they were saying. You just knew there were people. But I had set out my recorder, made sure it was on. And we went to bed and wasn't hearing anything. Like people around us weren't doing whoops or tree knocks or anything the whole time. But oh, I wake up at some point in the night and I hear we had my dog bowls. They're the stainless bowls. I had one for water, one for food. But we didn't have food or in them or anything. But I'm sure the smell was still there. But I woke up to something messing with those bowls. Like it sounded like it was picking them up and setting them down, picking them up, setting them down. And I'm thinking it's a bear. And it could be a Bigfoot. But I smacked the side of the tent thinking it's going to scare whatever off. And the sound got like more aggressive, like picking it up, setting it down. So I do a hey, like out pretty loud. And hear it again. Like, do I really have to go out there? And I'm like, I'm not going out there because it's unzip the door to the tent, unzip the fly, turn around, zip the door of the tent, unzip the fly, they keep the dog inside and everything. And I'm like, I am not turning my back to whatever that is. I wasn't hearing anything but the bowls. Didn't hear anything run away or anything. But again, I'm like, I don't know if I really want to go out and see that. But my dog didn't make a sound the whole time, and he like at home he barks at everything. So I was like there's no early warning from him either. I fell asleep pretty quick after that, and it woke I woke my son up with my smacking the tent and my hay, and he's like, "Do you hearing that?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm hearing that. What do you think I'm making noise for?" But got up the next day, super excited to go out in the daytime, see what it was. There were raccoon prints, like dusty raccoon prints on the table. Like it was standing on its back legs, putting its paws on there. So I assume that's what it was. But get the recorder out, and I'm really bad with like listening to my recorder and like getting it done. So it's been kind of recent, and I thought it was like 3 o'clock in the morning that the bowl thing was going on, and it was more like midnight. So there's a whole bunch of the nighttime that I haven't listened to, but I've listened a little bit past the bowl thing. So there's knocks like this tree knocks here and there, and you can kind of tell a little closer, a little farther, a little louder, different differences in them. So it's not just like our neighbor decided to do that, and they're doing it in one area. And then you can hear some like kind of like yells and like, it's people camping, who knows? Somebody had a little too much to drink. But at one point there's this it sounds is a roar. It sounds like an African lion. And I had Mike listen to it at work the one time, and his brother listened to it. I've had a couple people listen to it, and they're like, yeah, that's what it sounds like. I'm like, if it was a bear, that was awfully close. And this roar happens just a few minutes before the dog bowls start making noise. And honestly, I've been kind of afraid to listen to the rest of it because I'm afraid that I'm going to hear the rest of it and hear raccoons outside the tent at some point. Like they came later and we just didn't hear them. And the other thing was the people that we could see and hear mostly Sunday morning, they packed up and were gone like super early before we got up. Like it was one of those, like we got up for breakfast and I was like, well, when did they leave? Didn't even really hear them. So I thought it was weird. But yeah, I have my recorder and I'm like, I gotta listen to it, but I'm a little bit afraid of what might be on there. If I'm sure I'm gonna tell myself there's just raccoons, and I was kind of chalking it up as there's a bear outside or maybe a Bigfoot, but it was it was just weird that it was making the noise like that, the way it was on the table picking them up and setting them down, and it's one of those like 6-foot plastic folding tables, so it's a good 3 feet to the surface, so where the bowls were, so it would have had to have been a pretty good raccoon, a good sized raccoon to get up there. But it was just it was just a weird night. And again, it's all in the same area. So I mean, literally, like the Pinecombe thing was maybe a mile from the second place, and then maybe not even a mile to where we went camping. So it's walkable. So it's the same general area, and it seems like there's not many there's not houses. There's a few cabins here and there, but there's not. It's more just a forest road with some dispersed camping, and a little further down the road there's some trails. I know the Colorado Trail's kind of near there too, but again, it's not a heavily used area too.
Gotcha. It's interesting how the both of you are being affected in having different types of things happen after that situation that you were both present for. It is very, very, very interesting.
Yeah, one of the things I think is weird was the 3 people that saw the blurry portal thing were the 3 people that heard stuff later. And we all we're standing in a different spot, and we all had our little different perspective on the portal thing, and we all heard a little bit different things at the same time. And it was it wasn't one of those like, oh yeah, I see it, it was like, this is what I'm seeing and this is what I heard. And, that, it wasn't just like somebody is just agreeing to fit in, or, that kind of thing. It was, this is what I'm seeing and hearing and what I'm experiencing.
Absolutely. It'd be interesting to find out if B and K also had strange things happen after the night experience with you guys, but who
I
knows?
guarantee you Kay did.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, Jeremiah, they have B and K have some land out there in Montrose, and they've got game cameras set up. Two weird things on there. They showed me and Todd. One was, they call him the naked jogger, this old guy that has a fanny pack only and his tennis shoes on, go walking through their forest. And the second is a bobcat that's turning away from the camera, looking at something, and you see these two huge eyes. I don't think you could see the outline. They sent us, me and Todd, the picture, but Jim had actually blown that up into some kind of big poster thing, and they went and measured it. And Todd, wasn't it like 8'8" or something, where those eyes were? He went back into that area and put himself where you could almost see the outline, not quite. You could definitely see the eyes, and you can see the outline of the head a little bit. It's like the eyes are reflecting the camera, or they're glowing. I'm sure it's probably reflection off the light, but that bobcat is staring that thing down. The camera going off did not even phase it.
Yeah, I was saying with that was, they said about, there's not, I think this is what he said, there's not like a branch or anything for like an owl just to be sitting there.
And the eyes are too far apart.
And the eyes are far apart. But just looking at it, like my thought was, I bet if that was that, the eyes are a Bigfoot, if that's what that is, it's maybe it knew where it wasn't going to set off the camera, and that bobcat screwed that up. Like
it could be
came from behind the camera, like the camera went off and got both of them, like just out of coincidence. But yeah, it is, I mean, it's super cool to see that. You see it from people you've never met, kind of thing, and you're like, oh, whatever. But when you see it from somebody who you've met, you've talked to since, then you're like, man, I really think that is something.
Right.
They were supposed to come on with us. They were all for it, and then we just haven't heard back from them in probably a month or so. We've kept in contact.
Okay. Well, who knows? Maybe they'll hear this. You never know.
And reach out. Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. But guys, what an incredible account. I'm so glad that we are connected. It's an incredible story of a lot of different things happening when you look at the whole story. I hope that, Mike, things get better with your health. I'll be praying for you regarding that. And Todd, I hope things don't get too weird. Hopefully, that the pine cone thrown at you is the weirdest thing that happens. But please keep in touch with me if things continue to happen for you guys. I'd be interested to know about it.
We sure will, Jeremiah. Thank you. We appreciate it.
Yeah, sure thing. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for coming on the show today, guys. It's been a pleasure.
It's been our pleasure talking to you. We appreciate it.
All right. Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and end recording.
Hello, my name is Bill Nowak. I was writing a message I did not get to finish. It was about an encounter I had on my 17th birthday. I'm now 66 years old. This encounter has stayed with me my entire life. It's changed my entire life. And it's something I pray nobody else ever has to go through. But that being said, these creatures are extremely intelligent. They can be kind. And they can also, while your brain's recalibrating, trying to figure out what you're looking at, scare you to death. As I said, it happened on my 17th birthday. I'm now 66. I still have nightmares, sleep disorders, PTSD. I've been to I don't know how many doctors. I've went under hypnosis 3 different times. There's something. It's, I think a lot of times these creatures really get a bad rap. And I just like people to know that they're very intelligent. They can and they will help you when they can. If it wouldn't have been for what the one did that day for me, I would not be here today. Pure and simple. I owe it my life. Anyway, I just wanted to let you know. If you'd like to reach out to me, my phone number's and call anytime. I sleep no more than 1 or 2 hours at a time, so usually I'm easy to get a hold of. Thanks for listening.
If you'd like to share a voicemail to be potentially featured on the show as well, head over to BigfootSocietyPodcast.com and hit the Share Your Encounter button. Just wanted to take a minute to say thank you for listening to the episode of the Bigfoot Society podcast. Mike and Todd's story is one of the most unsettling we've ever heard, not just because of the strange lights or the firefly swarm, but because of what it felt like when reality seemed to slip. So a huge thanks to both of them for coming on and sharing what happened out in that canyon. If you enjoyed this conversation, please subscribe to the channel on YouTube or wherever you're listening, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss any new episodes. And share this one with a friend who's into Bigfoot, Colorado mysteries, or anything downright eerie. If you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please be sure to follow the show there. If you'd be willing to leave a review, it really helps others discover the podcast. And if you or someone you know has had a Bigfoot encounter, especially in Colorado or southern Wyoming, I'd love to hear from you. So please send me an email at bigfootsociety@gmail.com. Thanks again for being part of the Bigfoot Society. Until next time, keep your eyes open, trust your gut, and remember what they said. If you hear the hum, turn back. And see you in the woods.